Welcome back. You're watching NewsXWorld. I'm Rishabh Gulati, and this is Focal Length, where we get you a briefing on topics from across the globe. Gaza. There have been UN resolutions, UNSC resolutions, calls from Washington, both from the current Democratic presidency and former President Trump, to wind up. But Israel is still insisting on its right to rid the region of Hamas. For Israelis, that's the thin red line. Joining us now is Major General Yaakov Amidror. He's the former National Security Advisor for the Israel Defense Forces. So what are the war aims for the IDF? When does this end? Under what terms? Let's find out. General Amidror, thank you very much for joining us on Focal Length. Let me begin by asking you, what is the current military situation for the IDF in terms of casualties, deployments, and available personnel as per your understanding?
The situation now in Gaza is that we finished to gain control, military control in the north part of the strait. We are still fighting around Khan Yunis and the center. And Rafah, which is the south part of the strait, we didn't touch yet with ground forces. We are hitting targets here and there. But because there is huge population now in Gaza, in Rafah, we are not going there with ground forces before we will evacuate all the civilian people there, around 1 million people, by the way.
All right. So what are then the war aims as you see them now?
The first goal of the war was to distract, to eradicate the military capability of Hamas. We did it to 18 battalions out of the 24 that Hamas has. In Rafah, there are another 4 battalions, and it will take time to reach Rafah and to dismantle the battalions in Rafah as well. There are another 2 battalions in the centers, but they are not strong. And we, in the meantime, we don't have any plan to distract them. It will take time to clean Gaza after the destruction of the military battalions. It will take probably half a year or a year to clean Gaza from all the remnants of Hamas. For example, in the last few days, we are fighting inside the Gaza Strip in one of the hospitals called Shifa Hospitals. Shifa Hospital became center for Hamas and Islamic Jihad terrorists. We captured almost 400 of them. We killed few dozens inside the hospital. And we are continuing the operation because there are other terrorists inside. And so that will be in the next year, that will be the kind of a war in Gaza. We will go into Gaza whenever we have good intelligence to specific places to kill and to destroy the remnants of Hamas, people, infrastructure, whatever. But military forces will not be all over Gaza after we will distract the Hamas capabilities in Rafah.
Okay, General, how would you then analyze the situation on what has gone well and what has not gone well on the ground?
Look, that was a very unique war in which we had to fight on the ground and under the ground. And under the ground, there were more than 500 kilometers of tunnels that we have to go into it, to fight inside, to kill the terrorists which had been there, to capture all the materials from headquarters and so on, so we will have a good intelligence for the future, and then to destroy the tunnels. So it was a very unique war which was done parallel under the ground and on the ground. And I think that up till now, it's went very well, but we didn't finish it. We have to take Rafah as well.
Okay, so what about the negotiations on the hostage release? Where do they stand as per your understanding?
As you know, in the operation of Hamas in 7th of October, they killed 1,200 people. By the way, most of them civilians. A quarter of them in a music festival. and they captured 250 Israelis and some foreigners, men, women, children, elderly, babies at the age of 9 months and less. So we have now in Gaza, inside Gaza, 135 hostages, including babies and children and women. And we are negotiating now in Qatar with Hamas. And I don't know what will be at the end of the negotiations, but if the deal will be agreed, will be a pause in the war. The war will stop for 6 weeks probably, and will be resumed afterwards if will not be another deal.
All right. Yes. So we've been now told, as in the global community, that there is a truce plan on the table. What are the terms then which would be acceptable to Israelis?
Israel is determined to eradicate the military capability of Hamas. For that, we have to continue the operation in Rafah, and we probably will do it. It doesn't matter what people around the world will try to advise us. We understand the situation, and after the atrocities of the 7th of October, we are determined to eradicate Hamas, and for that, we have to go to Rafah. When we finish in Rafah, everything is on the table. Depends what will be the circumstances, what the other side will be ready to offer, what the Americans want to achieve, what the Saudis want to achieve. But for us, one issue is a red line. We will not let Hamas to build in Gaza Strip threats against Israel. Whenever we identify one, we will go into Gaza, destroy it, and kill the people which are planning to attack Israel. We will not let Hamas to do what we did in the past. We gave them the opportunity to build their capabilities inside Gaza. It is impossible from our point of view to allow Hamas to regroup in Gaza. This is the red line. Other than that, everything can be negotiated.
General, the United States, including Anthony Blinken on his visit, has been calling for an immediate ceasefire. Hasn't enough time now elapsed?
No, Israel is not ready for immediate ceasefire. Ceasefire depends on the release of the hostages. If the hostages will be released, ceasefire is part of the deal. If the hostages will not be released, ceasefire is not in the cards. We are not going to make any ceasefire without the releasing of the hostages.
Okay, all right. So what more then can the IDF do to safeguard civilian lives in Gaza?
The IDF made things that no army in the world did in modern world. First of all, we told the civilians where we are going to attack, and we asked them to move the area. Kind of a notification to our enemy, guys, this is the area that will be attacked. Let the civilians to be moved from this area. Hamas tried to block the civilians because they want to maximize the number of civilians will be killed by the IDF. We want to minimize the number. So what Hamas did is to try to block the civilians, but many of them left the north before the invasion of Israel into the north part of Gaza Strip. Second, we are moving civilians to safe havens in which we don't touch them. There wasn't even one strike in the area which was designated by the IDF as a safe haven for the Palestinian population. The problem is that Hamas is fighting from within the population. They don't identify themselves with uniform. You can be a member of Hamas to walk in the street, to enter to one of the buildings, to take weapon, to kill Israelis, to go out as a civilian, and you are a civilian. It cannot be identified as Hamas. We are making many intelligence efforts to identify who is Hamas and who is civilian, and to minimize the number of casualties within the civilians. It's not that we are succeeding all the time, because Hamas taking the civilians as defensive shield He wants to fight behind the civilians. They are going to hospitals, they are going to mosques, they are going to schools, because they know that Israel will be very cautious not to attack mosques, schools, and hospitals, and they are taking shelter in those places. They use it to launch missiles and rockets against Israel from the area around such places as schools, mosques, and hospitals. So we are doing whatever we can, but because of Hamas, there are civilians which had been killed. It's a war, and in a war, when you declare a war like Hamas, your people will suffer. And this is the situation. We try to minimize it, but we know that we cannot succeed 100%. But the blame is on the shoulder of Hamas, not ours.
General, there is no denying there is a humanitarian crisis in Gaza. Surely more efforts are now needed to end this quickly.
We make any effort which is needed. Every country which wants to take part in providing humanitarian help to aid to Gaza, we are ready to accept. I think after speaking with the commanders on the ground, there is a huge exaggeration about the crisis inside. It is true that Hamas tried to loot the trucks which are bringing the food into Gaza, but we killed many of those members of Hamas which tried to do it. In the last few days, we are succeeding to distribute the food inside the north part of Gaza. This is the area in which is more problematic. But there is no lack of food in Gaza. It's a lie which the told by enemies of Israel and those who do not like the fact that Israel is controlling now Gaza Strip. There is enough food inside. Maybe part of it is very expensive because strong people are controlling the system, and they don't let everyone to get what he should get, and people will have to pay money for that. But there is no lack, not of bread, not of food, not of water inside Gaza. In many cases, these are lies and exaggeration about the crisis inside Gaza, because they understand that that will bring to pressure on Israel. But because we know the truth, we are not going to give up because of the pressure. We will bring more humanitarian aid into Gaza, and we are now building the capability to bring it through the sea. It is coming from Cyprus into Israel. The Americans want to build another system in the sea that will be allowed as well. Whoever wants to contribute to the aid into Gaza, we are more ready and happy to accept it. And the stories about the humanitarian crisis are either lies or exaggerations relative to the real situation on the ground.
Okay, General Amidror, thank you so much for joining us on Focal Length here on NewsXWorld. With that, we take a break. See you on the other side.